back. Hey,
Holy
hello.
crap.
My brain rebooted and we're back over here. It's October. It's spoopy time. Look at all the spoopiness. Look at this cool little snake. I'm wearing my Halloween Horror Nights shirt that I'm already sweating in.
Spooky, scary skeletons.
She's already working out.
Now you're gonna see me duck down a bunch to fucking turn this on.
She found the voice effects, and now we're just going
I didn't find them. I just stopped being lazy.
Oh, I mean, fair, but it's just only okay. Turn back. Oh, it's just his voice. It's not the demons. It's just me.
It's just I am the demon.
I am aggressive.
I'm hiding under your bed.
Oh god. I'm the one eating your feet.
I was gonna make an in the closet joke, and I was like, never mind.
I was only under the bed, but trapped in the closet. Wait, you are.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I'm hiding in your closet, and I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say topical. You're R. Kelly.
Oh.
That dude got charged. Anywho, welcome to Metal Waifu.
Hey.
Should do the introduction and tell us who you are. I'm Nick.
I'm Alexis.
Touched your arm. Gross.
Cuties.
Cuties.
6 feet.
6 feet.
Is this 6 feet? Probably.
No.
No.
I was like those masks. Like that's not 6 feet. I love those. Start of the month. I was unfortunate. It was unfortunate that our initial plan, or at least my initial plan, was going to be for Halloween. We watch the supposedly supposed to be coming out Uzumaki series, the Junji Ito and all that stuff. Right. That I was like really excited for, but that's still in development, delayed, and all that sad stuff. So we decided instead, through some requests and some interest we already had for it, to talk about Parasyte. The Maxim.
Which makes it seem like it's like a secondary thing, but it's not.
It's like a surname or whatever. I think it's more just the differentiated fact that this is the anime of the series and everything along those lines. 24 episodes, so it's we did another long one, unfortunately, for us. We watched it on Crunchyroll, but then we through some investigative sleuthing. You know where else you can watch the English dub on?
Peacock. Out of all things. It was the only place I could find that had it except the sketchy website that I found.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, no.
We all know about those sketchy anime websites. We almost got sent to that for Promise Neverland Season 2. I was like, you know what? God. I'll and then we already heard stuff about it anyway. I was just like, fresh out, fam. But good news. We're now... you can watch it for free on Peacock, but you have to make an account for it. So, surprise, we now are Peacock account members. So,
why not? Just have every service.
Yeah. Welcome to the 21st century. So we decided to watch Parasyte. You want to go and give them a quick description of what that may be for the uninitiated?
The uninitiated.
The unsure.
Sorry.
Okay.
No, I almost was clicking too many things. I was just making sure everything was recording. Okay, so. Parasyte, for those who don't know, of course, it was originally a manga. I'm actually curious.
1988 to 93 is an old manga. I did not realize that until I did a little sleuthing.
Yeah, 1988 to 1995.
Well, 95.
It was first published in North America by Tokyo Pop, of course. Those. How long was it? I'm actually curious. I don't know how many.
How many chapters?
How many chapters or how many? It's 10 volumes.
Gotcha.
So, fairly long. So I originally heard about Parasyte through, the lovely world of Toonami, which confuses me why the English dub was so hard to find. But, so the whole story here, it is a horror genre anime. It's not really that scary. I've seen a lot worse horror animes, but it came out in 2014. It's about teenager Shinichi Izumi. He's a high school student who lives in a quiet Tokyo neighborhood with his parents. His life changes when worm-like creatures called parasites appear on Earth, bent on taking over the brains of human hosts by entering their ears or noses. One such parasite tries to crawl into Shinichi's ear while he's sleeping one night, but his headphones block entry, so the creature, who gets the name Migi, burrows into Shinichi's arm instead, taking over control of his right hand. Shinichi and Migi eventually form a bond as they work together to survive their unique circumstances.
A bond together forever.
Yeah.
And ever. Never. So going into this series, it was like you said, it was the assumption that when we were going into it, that it was going to be semi-horror based. And like seeing some of the clips before and seeing all the stuff and everything, I'm like, okay, looks like some body horror stuff. It looks like all that kind of jazz. And I'll say for maybe like the first chunk, like little like first few episodes, and then like maybe a little bit towards the end of the series, it does have some horror traits associated with it and everything like that. And of course, the situation, everything between like the parasites showing up on Earth and all like, or at
Yeah,
least
the
it
whole
being
idea
there.
is terrifying.
Yeah. It goes.
Because the parasites eat humans.
Yeah.
That's the whole problem, is they invade and host in humans and then eat other humans.
Yeah, and they're effectively killing the humans that they're infesting, because they have to, if they get to the brain, they basically take full control, and basically they're at this point they're considered monsters and all that kind of stuff.
And they're still weak to like normal human things. So if their human body ages and dies, or if like it's riddled with sickness and it dies, then the parasite will die too. They are still weak in that regard.
Yeah, they're still like humans in every other aspect, except for the fact that their flesh is malleable and turns into blades and goes all that kind of jazz.
Ribbons.
You know? Yeah, ribbons.
Spirals.
Yeah. But it takes, once it gets to a certain point, it starts becoming a little more of like a horror adjacent and more of like a shonen.
Yeah.
Because like, so start of the series, right? You get introduced to the character of Shinichi. You get introduced to his character, and he's introduced as nerdy high school kid.
Very timid. Can't talk to girls.
Yeah, just swinging and a miss like nobody's business or whatever. And of course, this crazy thing gets introduced in his life in terms of this parasite. And
oh yeah, because in the beginning, he's terrified of bugs.
oh yeah. He has a fear of, like, because they have like a dinner scene, and there's like a bug shows up on the table, like slaps it away. But once the parasite gets introduced to his arm, because obviously he wakes up to it, realizes it's about to burrow in. He basically takes like his headphone cord, and ties it off, and like prevents it from getting up there. So it settles in his hand. So the parasite forms on his hand. It grows like an eye stalk and all that kind of stuff. And it's interesting. And when it first forms or whatever, it can barely say anything. It has like a mouth that opens up and looks like a human
has like
mouth.
No speech, no nothing.
Yeah,
it's just a brain dead thing.
Yeah,
like, I don't know what's going on. I'm just here.
Yeah, it just exists. So when you're introduced to Shinichi, very timid and all that kind of stuff. But then as the series goes on and things happen, his character starts getting stronger in certain aspects and in certain ways, and there's fights that happen, and it veers away a little bit from the like grotesque body horror that like I was kind of more expecting from it. And kind of goes more into like, it gets more action oriented, because there's a lot of fight scenes and all that kind of stuff. To which like I'm always like semi fine with and everything like that. I kind of was like, there are certain points in the show where I think there is some really good like body horror craziness that goes on. But like
and there's a whole drama line of just the parasites integrating into human life, and like there's certain characters, the things that they do, and the questions they ask, and like all these like there's a bunch of this just like crazy.
There's a lot of philosophical. It gets
the ending.
Okay. We I want to go ahead and like kind of give like,
we need some actual story.
Right. Well, we could talk about the actual story is like fine, but like I at least want to like hit the points of like the things I liked about this anime, and the things I enjoyed, and the things that I was kind of like, yeah. I at least want to start with the things that I liked. I think the concept of the whole parasite thing kind of is interesting, right? In terms of what their whole purpose is, because like when the show starts and you're introduced to the parasites and you're finding with Shinichi, like the Nietzsche. Who's Nietzsche? It's a person. It's a specific name. It's like a historical name, but Shinichi. I'm trying to associate the names. He's getting introduced to these concepts, whatever. But when the parasite forms a consciousness and everything like that, and starts like cooperating a little bit more with Shinichi,
Yeah, and it like overnight learns how to speak English.
Yeah, he just
Or,
finds
well,
books.
It would be speaking Japanese technically. Whatever.
Yeah, we watched the dub, so speak English, but they're Japanese.
Yeah, he learns human language and speech and some of the slang, but he's still very much like doesn't know what's going on with certain things.
So like me,
I sense that you're attracted to that female.
I'm gonna.
Or I sense that you want to mate with that female. Is what he said.
Yeah.
Like,
And
Jesus.
Then he goes in the fucking urinal. And is just like, "Need help there, bud?" And you're just like, he doesn't say it like that. He says it like, Migi as a character.
I kind of love Migi.
I think I'm a little bit more on the other end of that coin, where I was just like, because Migi's so like, because the way the parasites are represented, like in the good chunk of the show, is they're represented as like these very logical, survivalist, like
They only care about themselves.
They only care
about their own survival. Like,
yeah, like the whole point of them eating humans is just because we need them for our nutrients and we need to survive and all that kind of stuff. So when Migi gets introduced and he starts introducing some of the concepts with him, he for a good chunk of the show he's very much like, no, why do you care for anyone? Why do you have emotions? Like, all that kind of stuff. This
is a burden.
Yeah,
who gives a shit what the cops do?
Yeah. Yeah, that's my thing with like Migi is a little bit like he has his moments where it's like it's funny with like him being extremely logical into the situation, but there's a lot of times I'm just like I'm trying to empathize with the character, and sometimes I'm just like, yeah, why didn't he just cut you off? Like, but it also kind of happens with the inverse with Shinichi too, where Shinichi. Even when he's getting more stronger and everything like that, he makes some choices, which I won't go into too much yet until probably a little bit later. But like,
well, and that's because of one particular thing.
Well, yeah, but like, well, even in that situation, it's like I get it. It's like that's that moment and everything like that. But I'm just like, come on, man. Like,
well, no, I'm talking about like it's the fact that. Well, he died. It was the fact that his body became even more integrated with Migi that he's starting to have like mood swings where he just like
there
was a puppy in a trash can.
Oh, bro. Yeah. So like so the first part of the series is Shinichi with the hand and everything like that, them figuring stuff out. And they find out things about the little things here and there about the parasites, because the first one they run into, which basically gave me the insight to what very much the source material is basing itself off of, is absolutely John Carpenter's The Thing, because when they get introduced to the corgi, who fucking has the head and everything like that, he like take a husky but make it a corgi and has the same like the head sprout and all that kind of stuff and everything. And I was like, this dude, when he made this manga in like '88, absolutely watched The Thing and was like, this is it. Basically, the best way I can describe Parasyte to somebody who's not really like in the anime or whatever, best way I can describe Parasyte is what if the Thing got out of Antarctica. And what if the Thing got out of Antarctica and started getting into like the real world or whatever, but then it also had like a weird like mental complex. It wasn't just trying to survive. It was also just like it also had like lines of weird logical comprehensive thought.
Yeah, because typically these parasites, they just take over the brain. They don't care. Like they live. And even like Migi talks about, he doesn't know anything about where he came from, what he is. He doesn't know anything. They're all individual little things. And typically they will take over a host completely, which means consciousness and thought and everything. And they have nobody to like discuss with. So now Migi has this opportunity of talking directly to a human, and a human directly interacting with a parasite, trying to like cohabitate,
coexist or something like that, or whatever. Yeah. So like, but like that first part is them kind of figuring shit out, and running into people who have already had their brains taken over by parasites, because that was one thing that kind of took me out a little bit, and basically kind of made it a point where like this is definitely horror adjacent. Once Migi was like, oh, I can tell who's a parasite or whatever, I was figuring like a good chunk of the show was going to be like them being like, well, I don't know who else is a parasite or whatever. And there's moments where that happens, but like little moments. It's like there's not enough. There wasn't that much tension building in terms of like trying to figure out who's a parasite and who is. I think the only time is when the first time you meet Goto or whatever, Gato or whatever, but it's a Miku, or his name is, the guy whose legs don't work right.
Oh,
Yeah. And that was like the first time where like you were kind of like, he's like, this is a parasite, this is not a parasite, but as an audience member, you're kind of like, I'm pretty sure that's a parasite. There's no like for me, the tension. There wasn't too many moments where that was like tension. There was a lot of tension there.
Oh, yeah. A lot of times it was just Migi going, I sense my kind 300 meters away.
Yeah. Migi.
Because that's like his radius is 300 meters, right?
Yeah.
If you're outside of that, he can't sense you.
Yeah.
But they can all sense each other, and they can sense each other's intent. So if somebody has like
Yeah.
murderous intent, then that signal's like really, really strong, and every parasite in the vicinity will know that like this
Yeah.
one's on a mission.
Yeah.
Like-
Basically, it's like a concept like a fight or flight mechanic or whatever, basically. But so they find out a lot of that kind of stuff and everything, and at a certain point, Shinichi's family is getting involved, inadvertently, because his fucking at a certain point his mom gets fucking offed off. It's early on in the series.
At this point, the cops are like, it's out in the news that there's a mincemeat murderer.
Mincemeat murders.
Yeah,
We're
so
all mincemeat.
Yeah, all of this is just happening. They haven't figured out that there's, that they mutate or anything. They haven't really. There's some stuff that's kind of not being released to the public that
Yeah.
like they're like, oh shit. But yeah, it's not in open knowledge yet that these things exist.
Right. So like everyone's kind of a little concerned here and there about it, but his parents go on a little vacay thing, and then mom accidentally, well, not at least on her end, there was an incident where one of them was just like, just clean off her head, and whoever was the parasite took her and then heads over to the house, and there's an incident, and Shinichi has a whole thing where he's like trying to talk to his mom, and Migi in a moment where I was like, yeah, Migi's right in this situation. Migi's like, that's not your fucking mom anymore,
Yeah,
bro.
you need
She's
to,
not there
like, get
anymore.
over it.
She's dead. He's just like, that's my mom, bro. That's my mom. And of course, he just gets
Yeah,
off.
straight to the heart.
Yeah, shot through the heart.
Yeah, Jesus.
But then Migi, this whole thing where he merges with his heart, and he ends up going like to his bloodstream and everything like that, and he ends up reviving him. And basically, he has like Shinichi has like a Spider-Man moment where it's like basically he got bit by the spider, and then he wakes up and he's just like shredded and doesn't need the glasses. Dude,
Sculpted. His freaking blindness is fixed.
yeah, he just has the glasses thing. I'm like, this is some Tobey Maguire. I've ever done seen it over here. Which, granted, the manga probably did it too, but like when it's in the anime, it's very like. I'm like, come on.
Yeah, like he ends up being able to like, he can jump 3 meters, or was it 3 meters, something like that?
Something like that. He can jump pretty high.
He can run crazy. Like I think
Yeah.
what he did did that sprint in like 10 seconds or whatever.
In certain fights, he blocks like the blades of like the creatures with his hand. Like just his hand is like down. I'm like,
Yeah,
what?
he's super strong. And
Yeah.
he's very much about like anybody who picks a fight with him, like bad idea.
Yeah.
And then there are pitfalls of it, like Migi has to sleep for 4 hours a day,
Yeah.
and that means that he can't hear Shinichi at all, because he used to be able to hear him when he would just choose to sleep when he was tired, but he could still hear like Shinichi's thoughts and hear if he was talking to him. But
Yeah.
now he's like completely out of commission for 4 hours.
And then the other thing too was Migi was able to wake up when he sensed that there was a creature out. But Migi, once that happens, has to take that 4 hour rest. He doesn't get. He doesn't sense anybody.
He has to take that sleep.
Yeah,
It
so
doesn't
like,
matter.
So there's a little bit of suspense, somewhat built off of that, but like there wasn't like
Shinichi just going, Migi, wake up!
Migi.
How many times?
Yeah. But he heads back to meet up with his dad, and of course the police the investigators are just
Oh,
kind
and
of
he
like,
also has an emotion issue now.
So
he
that's-
can't feel
that's
his
the-
sadness anymore.
yeah,
and
that
things
happens.
like that.
That happens like you find it out like a little bit after like he after like the whole mom thing.
Yeah. And he goes and finds dad in the hospital.
Find dad's in the
recovering.
hospital and all that kind of stuff, and then there's a whole thing with them finding out about them trying to find the parasite that killed his mom, who's taken over the body, and they almost run into somebody. They think they found the parasite or whatever, but then they meet another person who I think low key should have probably had their own manga or whatever, because I think they're a couple.
Roku?
No, old Uda and Joe.
And, yeah, Joe.
Uda and Joe.
Uda and Joe.
Oh God! So like, we have there's a reason why I haven't really talked about them yet, because they also filled into a point that I wanted to make that I think is a pitfall of the show a little bit. Uda and Joe are introduced, and what ends up happening with them is they're basically in the same situation as Shinichi and Migi are, where the host couldn't get to the brain because when the host took him over, fucking Uda was having a crisis because his wife has divorced him, and he was thinking about killing himself and jumping off a cliff. And he's like, I'm so pathetic, I couldn't even do that. Oh, he cries.
He's like sad
He's
man.
sad boy. He's a real sad boy. But when the parasite took him over, he fell off the cliff, and the parasite was like, he's about to drown, and I'm about to not have a host. So like the parasite helps him out, but because he didn't get to the brain when he settled in, he's now like on his throat basically, and basically like forms his mouth area thing or whatever. It's
Esophagus.
But they're because like. The thing I liked about Joe and that like I liked a little bit over Migi was like Joe had like a personality, because Joe, his way of learning information was through the TV, because that's what Uda would just do, is just sit down and be depressed and watch his TV. So like he develops this crass kind of personality. He's just kind of,
man, all this dude does is cry. Does your host cry this much?
You don't cry this much. This dude's a bitch. But I was just like, man, I'd watch a show with these two guys just getting shenanigans and shit.
I know, because how do you survive? Because Joe just comes out whenever he fucking feels like it, and he's so blatantly obvious. Where at least like Shinichi could like maybe put his arm behind, like it's like it's on his face.
But yeah, so and then at some point they end up working together, and they find the host that had his mom and everything, like killed the mom and everything like that, and killed the host that had the mom and all that kind of shit. So like that chunk is basically the somewhat of the figuring out of everything like that, which leads me to that part, and then a good chunk of the series that I couldn't give a crap about.
The relationship?
The teenage drama stuff was awful. It is not.
The whole time him trying to be in a relationship.
Okay, so here's the problem with an issue I had with the show, and I figured it out because of how I felt about the teenage drama stuff, like the melodrama shit, is that it takes a while, because like we told you everything that happened to Shinichi, like the interesting stuff, but in between that is the teenage high school melodrama that's going on between Satomi, what the hell was the name of the girl who is the bullies, like the one dude's like girl he was trying to get with, whatever, but she fell in love with Shinichi because he was her soulmate.
Oh, are you talking about the crazy girl that can sense him?
Yes.
Shit, hold
on. That was a
the
big
hell's her
one
name?
because it was such a like a why is this here?
Oh shit. Hold on, let me just pull it up.
Yeah, I got you. So like the high school stuff, it's basically just like Kana. So the high school stuff is a blend of like
Hideo or whatever.
Yeah, I know. The high school drama stuff is just because here's the thing about like Satomi is she's such an underwritten character.
Well, and this is what was so weird with me, because she's in the intro, which like and like they have them like cuddled up with each other, which made me think that she was going to be like a really pivotal part of this whole series.
She's just a love interest. That's all she is.
She just comes in and out and has like no personality except for the fact that, are you really Shinichi? That's her whole fucking personality, is that one statement of, are you actually Shinichi?
It kills a lot of the momentum of that show.
I hated that last episode. Episode 24 was not needed.
No, this is not.
I mean,
good.
I know it was probably needed because there were fans that were like, but what about their relationship? What happened?
Episode 24 is not them about resolving that relationship.
It's not.
Episode 24 is some real pretentious shit.
Well, yes, yeah. The overall.
Okay, so we're getting. I'm sorry.
No, it was me.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. So there's this whole high school melodrama that's going on between Satomi, who is like this girl that Shinichi's been into, and one or two of her friends involved in that. There's this, was it Kana? Kana. There's this Kana. Kana, who is, there's like a bully character. I forget his name because he's borderline.
That's Hideo.
Which
like
Kojima?
No.
His name's Kojima.
Shimada.
Shimada?
Shimada.
Oh, Shimada. Dude, fucking change that name. Shinichi Shimada. Shinichi, because I almost got confused for a second.
I know.
I'm like, wait, who are we talking about again? I'm like, oh.
Yeah, but he was the one that was like in Takana the whole time.
Right.
It's like, why do you keep going to this guy?
Yeah, so like
Eat your ass.
Yeah, well, no, so the high school drama stuff's just absolute nonsense, and it does get involved because one of the most important characters of the show shows up, and it's oh my god, the mother, Tomaru.
Wait, his mom?
No.
Oh no, like the parasite.
Yeah,
mom.
the parasite mom.
That's Tamara.
Tamara.
Reiko Tamara.
Reiko Tamara shows up because, like, obviously, like, they've some semblance of sensing or whatever, and she becomes a substitute teacher at the school. There's a lot of coincidental things.
That whole scene of her with like the male parasite dude
staring at each other, just like
naked.
Yeah, just like it's so like they're like
the most awkward sex of ever.
Oh my god, dude.
Ever. I mean, granted, you don't see anything past that, but it's like the whole setup is just like, oh
you
my
know
god,
you
what
know
the
that
fuck?
you know that it's like just gonna be absolute.
Yeah, she shows up as a substitute teacher and then dips because that was when she learned about Shinichi, right?
Well, she dips. Well, she learns about Shinichi, but that's when also Mr. A finds out about him, and he's just like, "Fuck that guy. He ain't
right.
shit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna beat his ass." And she bounces out because the whole
right.
thing happens, and then she has to, because some stuff got exposed or whatever. She has to bounce out because she has to bounce out and kill people close to who knew her host before that, so she doesn't have any ties. Yeah. So she bounces out,
changes her name and
everything like that, and she's like skedaddles.
Ends up having a baby.
Oh, so like so she ends up. So the first thing that ends up happening that's really screwed up. I liked her character because she was kind of the horror like messed up stuff that I was kind of looking for.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I was like, the first thing that happens is she shows up to her mother's like grab stuff or whatever, and her mom's like looks at her, and there's certain people that can. It's the first sign that you can see that certain people have like a sixth sense to like know who's a parasite and who isn't, who knows like they're not a person. And she's like, "Who are you? Mm-hmm. Where's my daughter? You're not her," and everything like that. And she has to kill her, and I'm just like, that's intense.
Yeah.
And then like throughout her whole arc, it's she has the kid. She's like. At one point, when she has the nanny over, and she goes,
the nanny.
The nanny is like, "Oh, she's been crying and everything like that, whatever." And she just goes to the kid, puts her hand on Tamara, puts her hand on top of the kid's head, and she's like, "Quiet," and the kid just like
stops,
silent. And
her whole intention is that she's going to experiment on this child.
Yeah, because she like,
wants to understand humans.
Yeah, and she's like, the nanny, rightfully so, is just like, "I'm out. Like,
yeah,
you crazy. You nuts."
She's like, "You're going to come back tomorrow, right?" And she's like,
yeah, no, 100%. But like, there's that stuff. She's also talking with other parasites, to which you find out there's later on you find out there's a possibility of a whole mayoral campaign that's all parasites, and you're just like, ooh, that can be intense. And she's part of that whole thing. But then there's like her arc when it gets later on in the series. I'm like, I really like, because she's the only character in terms of like the parasites, especially the ones you run into that he fights, that has like an actual like cohesive arc throughout the series. Because between like Mr. A, Shimada has like what, 1 or 2 episodes.
Yeah.
Him like.
Well, Shimada's whole personality is just wanting to fight Shinichi.
Oh, well, yeah. Well, he's also being fucking aggressively creepy.
Well, yeah.
That I like
stalking Kana around.
Well, yeah, he switches faces. That's the first time you find out that they can actually like change their face and everything like that, and he uses that to like lure. Like he basically like preys on like younger like girls around his age and like tries to like lure them through his charm and all that stuff, and then eats them.
The little nerdy girl is into him.
Oh yeah,
remember
Tama.
Her whole thing?
Yeah. And then she's like, her brother is an investigator who. She knows that he's been doing some of this part of that whole mincemeat murder thing, and then she puts 2 and 2 together at Shimada, which I think there was a little bit of like, it's because he got hit in the head in a pipe, and she was like,
he was gonna hit in the head with a baseball.
Oh, baseball, yeah.
It put a dent in his head, and she was just like, "Did I just see that?
That's not normal." I liked her character. Her character is decently fine.
Yeah.
But the come up with that is that Those some of those parasites have a little bit of a moment, and then they get killed off. And then we get back into more high school drama. And then we get into fucking when Kana does the whole thing where like his Satomi like walks up and is about to say like talk to Shinichi or whatever.
She's fucking brutal.
She's like, "Oh, I need you to walk with me, Shinichi," and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, "Get out of here!"
Creepy guy comes back. And she 100% knows what she's doing.
Yeah, Satomi's just like, I guess I'm out. Bye.
Shady.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Can we talk about when Shimada though did the whole massacre at the school because of the whole?
That was a good that was a good horror aspect of it.
Yeah, I really liked that.
I will say this. The early fight scenes with the tentacles and all that stuff, and when they were repeating the animation quite a bit, is a little. Which I looked it up, and I was like, "Who did the animation for this?" And it's Madhouse, I believe. So like Trigun, Perfect Blue, like a good solid animation house did this show. And once you get later on in the series, especially with some of the fight scenes between the parasites themselves and everything like that, when the official parasites start fighting each other, animation gets very. You can definitely tell they put a little more effort into those kind of fights and everything. But some of the earlier fights, there's definitely some like they'll do an animation between like the tentacles and the blades kind of going around, and they'll just kind of loop it. And like,
but I wonder if that was intentional, because the whole thing was that he couldn't, like, his host was permanently damaged and he couldn't control a lot of things.
There was other fights that were similar to that. Also, it was a little annoying that the good chunk of the parasites he first ran into were they're basically all of them just once they take over the head, that's where most of their tentacles come out initially. So like all of them just basically kind of look like the zombies from Resident Evil 4, where you shoot them in the head and their tentacles start flying out. Yeah. They basically look like that. I was just like, again, when it gets later on in the series, get more creative with a lot of how they work.
But I think that was part of it too, because it was supposed to show that they were evolving.
Yeah,
they were changing and evolving into society, and there was like, what the fuck is going on?
They're getting different attributes and everything like that. But like for me, it was cool when it was happening, but I felt it was took a little long to get to that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
My throat, my mouth, a little dry.
My neck, my back.
My Artus Tesseract.
No square.
Sorry, I made a Dune reference. Pinky up. Where was I going with this? Animation, sussy, whatever. Oh, but the Shimada fight scene, the whole school scene was dope in terms of like a horror aspect. And that was one of the few points I did like about it. But Kana as a character, refers back to the just absolute snore fest that was all the high school stuff.
She infuriated me.
She was like stupid. Okay, so here's the issue with her character, is that one, it also doesn't help the fact that basically at no point did like Shinichi or anyone else go like no. She takes her realizing or thinking that she can sense parasites.
Yeah, she's aware of her sixth sense.
She's aware of her sixth sense, but she thinks her sixth sense is that Shinichi's her soulmate.
Yeah. And that's why.
And you get fucking these weird ass dreams where there's these fucking.
When he's the knight.
With the fucking weird ass horse and all that shit. And she's like, oh, he's my knight. And she's this bitch be simping, bro.
Oh my God. It was just sad.
Bad. Yeah.
It was sad.
I'm just like, and we had a whole like 2 episodes devoted to this thing. I'm just like, bro, what? Like, because it's an interesting character concept, but it doesn't go anywhere.
Well, yeah, and she's so infuriating because Shinichi kept telling her, don't follow it, even if you think it's me. Like, if you get it, don't follow it, because you might run into one of those. And he literally tells you might run into, like, something dangerous. You may run into one of these creatures because, like, it was kind of slowly coming out that, like, something's fucking wrong, especially after Shimada's incident. But she just doesn't. She's so blinded by this, like, perceived love that, oh my God, she's infuriating. And she's like, she gets to the point where it's like, I have it. I can feel it with other people, but it's only strongest with you. So she's like so delusional. I'm like,
and then she gets offed by a fucking parasite.
Yeah, because she follows her fucking sense, which just leads her to a random parasite that's feeding.
Shinichi. Oh, and you're just like, fucks this bitch, and she's like, "Oh no, Shinichi, help me!" And she gets just done.
Which by this point, the mayor had won, right? Hadn't he won because he had established feeding areas, and that was one of the feeding areas, and that was why it was an issue. Yeah. So the mayor, who was the parasite, he established like a way for parasites to eat like under the radar.
What a twist!
Yeah.
With a twist, there's a twist to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when Shinichi goes and kills this parasite, and of course finds her, like Migi knows that it's going to be a problem because they're most likely in a territory that was set for feeding.
That happens. They don't know that. They don't figure that out until they bring the investigator with them.
Oh, okay.
Because the investigator, Tamara or whatever her name is, the mother parasite.
Tamara.
She sends out. She hires some thugs and a private investigator. Which, by the way, why is it that every time there's a high school bully fight scene that goes on or a thugging, it happens in that exact square grassy field? Like, why does it happen in this exact area? And don't tell me it's supposed to be a different area, because if that's the case, then it's fucking cheap animation budget. But it's always in this same fucking alley corner grassy spot where all these muggings happen.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, what the fuck? And so, like,
that happened a lot in like older like anime mangas. That shit always happened though.
It was always
like
a high school thing.
Spot, yeah.
It was always a high school thing, and that was just it. Like the high school angle of the show, which granted, again, 88 to 95. It was during that time period where a lot of shit was kind of coming to and everything like that. But like when we were watching it and the show came out in 2014 or whatever, obviously these things have been happening well beforehand. So when we're watching it now, we're not necessarily aware of the where it came from or whatever. I'm just kind of like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
This is fucking ridiculous. But yeah, the detective Sherlock Holmes, he gets hired on by her to like follow him around and investigate and like get photos and video footage and everything like that. And he assumes it's just a private investigation job. I mean, he's making money. But then Shinichi talks to him, tells him who they are, and then like they start joining up, and that's when they go into they trace down a parasite about to feed. Which I guess it's actually a theme of the show. How many times Shinichi tries to save someone and he just get annihilated, and he's like, "Damn it!
I know,
son of a bitch!
Oh, yeah,
another one's dead." Like, you suck at your job.
You suck at your job, bro.
You suck at your job, bro. What the fuck are you doing? But yeah, so like the fucking high school drama goes on. Satomi is realizing that he has no emotion, and he's just like, "I love you," even though you have no character development. Satomi, God, get a personality. shouldn't just be you're the love interest. Come on. But like that happens, and then like the kid thing's going on with Tamara or God, what stupid names. God damn it. And then we cut to the mayoral stuff that's going on, and he wins mayor, and that's when we get introduced to Gato and him and everything, and some of the other parasites are going on. We get a little bit in their conversations and everything and how they're establishing stuff. But Homegirl is getting a little unhinged, especially after having a kid and everything like that. And she starts laughing.
She tries to laugh like a human for the first time.
Yeah, and it just sounds like crazy.
It's terrifying.
Maniacal.
Her eyes go white, and they're like...
Yeah, the teeth showing up and everything. Like, it starts going nuts. But, like, she's, like, figuring out, like... She seems to be building some semblance of empathy towards the kid, even though there's just another scene where she shows up to a lecture to find out about the theory on the selfish gene, which basically just describes how most of the parasites are. And then Shinichi shows up, and he wants to try and fight her or whatever, and she grabs her kid, and she's like, "Listen, I'm not going to fight you, but I had to use my child as a shield." That's when she starts laughing in front of him. He's just like, "This bitch is, I'm going to beat her ass." He's angry. But then at some point, I think because, I don't know if she hired them or if the mayor or whomever hired somebody to kill Homeboy's family, but the investigator who was like working with Shinichi that she really got hired on, I forget his name. Was it Hamaki or Hamaku or whatever?
The one, Oh, like the private investigator
private
that she.
yeah.
What was his name?
Yeah, they end up, his family ends up getting killed, and he ends up being part of the investigation that other people are making, which.
Well, because she hired him to follow Shinichi and get like, just so she could gather more data on him, basically.
Yeah.
And then he ends up learning that Shinichi has the parasite and ends up kind of more involved in the world.
Yeah.
He confronts Tamura about like what the fuck is going on, what is this, and then because now he knows that, they're like, well, we gotta take you out.
Yeah,
but of course, his family was home and it was dark, so the parasites that were sent to do that just killed whoever was in the room. And he wasn't home.
Yeah, and
So now he's traumatized.
Now his family's dead.
Yeah.
But then you find out, as part of this, so you find out like governments and all that stuff have figured out, which leads me to the next gripe I have with this fucking show. You find out that the governments and all that kind of stuff and agencies had figured out what is going on, and during one of their meetings, they bring on this show. The biggest detriment to this fucking show is that I feel like some of the writers should have maybe try to write a little better in terms of maybe not just taking every single word from the manga page that is explaining fucking everything or inner monologues. Like, you don't need to have people talking constantly. Like, you can cut it back a little bit. But they bring on this scientist to be like, oh, he's done all this investigating, all this stuff, and they find out that the parasites can separate off. But usually when the stuff separates off of them, it becomes a new part of them, a new form. But usually if it doesn't have the proper nutrients it needs, they just die. So they're like, well, we can kind of come up with a way to try and get people to kind of out whoever's a parasite or not. Maybe we can do that.
Pluck a hair.
It's
like a lizard tail. Where it moves for a little while and then dies.
And then dies. So they basically somehow managed to basically make a hair pull challenge.
Yeah, like this is now how people greet each other. And they like show you like these two little girls that like run in the street, good morning, and they pluck each other's hair and they're like, yay! And I'm like, what
I'm like, what? Because here's the thing, like, coming back to the thing, how do you find out what the thing was? Like, well, it's allergic to fire, so or allergic. It's vulnerable to fire. So they have a whole scene where Kurt Russell has the hot wires going, and it's a tension scene, and it's very crazy, and people lose, like, it's there's a lot of tension when it builds to that kind of shit or whatever, but it makes sense. It's an interesting point to like build up that kind of stuff or whatever, like to show who's who or whatever. And this show's just like, oh, pull their hair out, you let them know whatever who they are and everything like that. And you're just like, what?
And of course, because Shinichi is not fully integrated, it doesn't affect him.
It doesn't affect him. His hair doesn't fall. But of course, like the next episode, they show a girl she gets too lit on a date, and the guy who's trying to eat her, she pulls her hair out, and the hair falls out. It like forms little squiggies, little things, and they die. And she's like, ah.
Yeah, because she's just being drunk. She's like, oh my God, do you hear about that thing where they like pull each other's hair?
Yeah, I hear about the hair challenge.
And then
that
does it, and she's like, oh fuck, it's real.
Yeah, you're like, oh my God, it worked. And as an audience member, you're just like, who the fuck would do that?
I know, it's very weird.
Who would? Listen, man, we already had the crate challenge. This hair pulling shit weak.
But now you got to talk about all within this is just the up and down roller coaster of Shinichi and Satomi's relationship.
Who gives a fuck, bro?
Because so their relationship's all over the place because of course she is like so hooked on the version of him that she met when they were entering high school, which was that shy, quiet, very awkward, like, you know, and they went on a date prior when he was still like that. So after he dies and comes back to life, he's now very much more emotionless. He's making more erratic decisions. He's bipolar AF. Like, this man goes from, like, everything is good to, like, fuck you, motherfucker. And you're like,
beat his ass.
yeah. And then he just calms down and you're like...
He's like, did you ever watch Darkman?
Yes.
He's like Liam Neeson in Darkman when you're playing the baseball game.
God,
he breaks his face.
Just so angry. Like he just goes but apparently part of like the positives of this new version of him is he can calm down really quickly. And I'm like,
Yeah, mono sociopath.
woo, okay, I can calm my emotions, or whatever.
Yeah.
So can mentally stable people. But, like, but yeah, so he hasn't been able to cry since all the things. And, like, I don't think Satomi ever found out that his mom was dead. Like,
She doesn't find out that he's a fucking parasite, apparently.
well, yeah, that too. But, like, yeah, nothing was ever said because he disappears for a while, and they just said that there was an incident with his mom, but she never knows that she's dead.
Every time they cut back to her, like when he's out doing something, they cut back to her. It's just her friends be like, "You look worried. What's wrong?" And of course, she's just like, "I'm worried about Sonichi." I'm like,
He
"Bitch,
hasn't been himself lately.
He just hasn't been himself lately. I just can't not function outside of my life without thinking about Sonichi." You know
And
what
then
I'm
there
saying?
was a puppy that died in the road because it got hit by a car and traffic was just not stopping. So Sonichi goes in and gets this puppy, and he's being like, of course she's like, "Oh my god, he's so sweet," but he's like, "Oh, this puppy's not gonna make it." They're at a park. This park comes around quite a few times.
Yeah.
And then when the puppy actually dies, he just throws it in the trash can. And she freaks out, and he's like, "I don't understand. What are you so upset about?" And that's like one of your big instances of like you get to see that he doesn't really have the human emotion that he used to. He's like, "Well, it's dead. Who gives a shit?" So then because she runs away and she's so upset, like a day or so later, he has some, I don't know, some weird ass clarity, and he's like, I should
probably
go
bury the dog. Yeah.
Yeah, so he goes and digs it out of the trash and buries it under a tree.
Yeah, he rationalizes like, oh, the dog's biodecomposed and will give it nutrients. And
Yeah,
it turns into logical
that's what
shit.
he says, yeah.
Yeah, and you're just like, bro,
Which
come
is
on.
that's what Migi does. Because you see you're starting to see like a lot of things where all of a sudden Migi shows like more human emotion where Sonichi won't. It's like they keep swapping personalities the whole time.
Yeah,
You're
which
like,
is a
"Jesus
little
Christ."
weird and inconsistent.
It was so weird.
But
Drove me nuts.
Yeah, I'm just like, what?
Him losing his shit out of nowhere all the time was like infuriating. Where he would just be like, "You bastard!" and you're like, "What are you angry about?"
I get the stuff where like his heart's having issues because like emotionally he's like I basically I attribute it to like him almost having like a panic attack whenever especially with stuff that's involving his mom and everything like that because it was a traumatic experience and that makes sense in terms of what's going on with his character both emotionally and physiologically. But yeah, he'd have those random emotional outbursts of not crying but just anger.
Yeah,
especially. He also got weird at certain points because there's fucking the one episode that ends, which I was like, I thought it was going to be the point where like, is he going to be a bad guy?
Oh,
when he shows up to the fortune teller,
yes,
with the hand, she's like, you have, and of course it's just ran into your fucking brain. It's like you have a hole in your heart.
Yep.
You have a hole in your heart, and she's like,
to confront the person.
You need to confront the person. Yeah, you need to meet that person. Everything like that. She's like, well, that's a shame. Because they're already dead.
He literally says, like, I already killed her.
Or killed her or something.
And the fortune teller's like, what?
Bitch is like, excuse me?
I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, and now he's officially evil. Like, we've officially crossed territory where he's going to lose his shit.
And then next episode happens, and no other mention of any of that shit happens.
It's chill.
Anything. Yeah, it's just, it's a chill vibe. You know what I'm saying? Like,
well, the only other mention is later on when it just happens to, like, when he's out of town and all that.
Yeah, when he's in the park.
Yeah, the big fight.
Oh, yeah.
Because, like, all of a sudden he's running through what the old lady told him, what the fortune teller told him, and he's like, I'm now confronting it. And then he cries.
Well, yeah, it was at the park. That was at the...
Was it at the park?
Yeah, it was when... So, all this happens...
relationship bullshit, and we're back on the main.
We're back on main. We're back on the main. Horny on main. We're back dealing with the parasites or whatever. And they're having issues with Tamara because she has her kid going on and everything like that, and she's acting somewhat irrationally. Mm-hmm. And
she's acting like a human.
Acting like a human.
Human.
Yeah, she's gaining some empathy towards her child, even though she has done some fucked up shit and has almost used her kid as a human shield and all that kind of stuff. But like,
didn't she say like exactly how many people she's killed?
38.
Yeah.
38. But there's something up with her, and so the other parasites like we might have to take her out.
Well, there's two
that
are like something's up, and everybody else is like,
yeah, who cares?
And these two are like so like there's something wrong. We need to offer.
Yeah. So they hone up with another person, and they try and jump her with her kid. And this whole fight scene happens in like it's like an industrial area and everything like that. It's my favorite fight scene of the series when it's she takes a part of herself, puts herself in one of the parasites, and starts kind of controlling and fucking up with their
She got crazy control of herself.
Oh yeah. Well, she was able to control like their nervous system and everything like that, and like make them like fight their friends and everything. And one of them like explodes into gore and guts and everything. Like, fuck yes, this is what I wanted.
Right?
like the parasite fight scene was great, and of course she like explains like the last dude just at this point is just like a fucking like the parasite head, just like it's like freaking out or whatever. At one point she takes control of the girl, and the girl's like screaming, "I'm like, I'm on your side, don't kill me." He's like, "Yeah, whatever. You're being controlled by her. Fucking, you're dead, bro." Like kills her. Bro. You're dead, bro. And then she sneaks up on him and kills him. She's like, "Why wasn't able to detect you?" She's like, "Because there's so much hostility in the area. There's so much murderous intent going on that you couldn't detect where I was at." So she was just like, "Got him, bitch." And that was a great fight because it was well animated. It was gory. It was all the shit that was kind of like, fuck yeah, this is what I wanted. And then you get a good arc with her where, well, you get a good arc with her, but then you think back on everything that's happened. Like, why should I care about your character?
Right?
Why should I empathize? Because it's at a certain point, that's right. She doesn't have the kid with her because when she goes back to her house, because the chief investigator, on the case of the private investigator whose family was killed, gave him the monikers like, it's like, you want to be Sherlock Holmes. Like, he mentions like he's traumatized and he's like, oh, I've always like looked up like Sherlock Holmes, all stuff, whatever. And like the one guy's like, you need to be serious. And the chief investigator is like, wait a minute, you want to be like Sherlock Holmes? And then he's just like, huh? And then of course he ends up kidnapping Deborah's kid, takes him to the park, and they have this whole confrontation or whatever, and he ends up getting killed. But she gets the kid back, but then...
And his blood ends up on the baby. Pivotal thing.
Yes, pivotal. The blood on the baby is the sign of who's the parasite and who is it.
Because he falls over this like cliff. It was off of a barrier, like a road that's up on a cliff. He falls off of that, and that's where they find him as he's dying. And he says, the woman's wearing white, but my blood also got on the baby. So that was like their indicators of who. Because at one point there is a poor woman in a white shirt with like a black vest, and they're like, who are you?
With a
like
baby
pointing,
in her hands.
Yeah, pointing a gun at her, and she's like freaking out because she doesn't understand.
What a coinky dink.
Yeah, thank God he mentioned that his blood was on the baby, because they would have just murdered this innocent freaking woman.
Real 2020 of you there, buds.
Good God. But yeah, so then they find her, and of course, this investigator too, like, it's interesting that nobody knows him. They only know his name, but nobody knows what he looks like. That's like the whole thing about him, but, I digress.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they encounter her in the park again. And of course, he's like, blood on the baby. It's her.
It's the blood on the baby.
Yeah.
And they put a shot into her, because they're trying to...
shooting.
Oh, they keep shooting. Well, they keep on, like... They have like an issue of like, do you need to shoot Shinichi or do you need to shoot her? And the investigator was funny because I semi-liked his logic where he was just like, your name is X or whatever. We've met before and everything like that. And Shinichi's just like, why are you saying that name? I don't think we've ever met in entire life. And he's just like, all right, he's good.
Yep.
I want to risk. It's all on me if this shot doesn't fucking count. And he shoots her in the head, and she's like, you guessed correctly. And they're just like, okay, light her up.
Yeah.
They have, by the way, those cops have the steadiest of aims.
Oh my God.
The steadiest of aims. Because they're like, she makes her hair like kind of like a shield for her kid, but she's still holding the kid as those bullets are going off. And I'm just like, and then finally after like they put like 20 shots into her, that she's like, be careful, she's holding a child.
Yeah, like, homie, what? Yeah.
like Jesus, boy's got some trigger discipline. You're just going in, laying bullets. But she's like walking towards Shinichi, and obviously she's taking the bullets, but she's not reacting to them because, she's super strong. She basically has like a Thor's moment.
Yeah.
Like fucking, she's just like, he just takes 1,000 arrows and he's just like telling everyone like, hey Eric, I just want to take care of Thorfinn, all that kind of stuff. Hey Askeladd, eat shit and die. et cetera, et cetera. She basically has that kind of moment where she goes up to Shinichi. She takes the form. Basically, she kind of morphs her face into his mother, so they kind of like ease him into it or whatever. And basically, she has a whole like heart to heart with him about like raising a child and all that kind of stuff. And like, yeah, in the moment, like while I was watching
What
it,
are we here for?
What are we
Do
here?
you ever think about where we came from?
we are no more than much like you humans and trying to go habitating. So, and she tries to get in this whole thing. The show, and here's the thing: when I looked up the manga and everything like that and all that kind of stuff, it seems like the manga seems to do a decent job of like trying to get its points across in terms of like how it go, like how it's thoughts and their meanings and what they're trying, what the author is trying to get across in terms of like society and animals and environmental shit and everything along those lines. I'm going to make the assumption that is probably better told in a longer spanned manga series over a 24 episode series where she starts going into that whole speech where she's like talking about like who are we, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just like, bitch, you killed 38 people. You almost experiment on your kid.
Yeah.
You're just now being like, maybe this is fucked up. I'm like, no shit. Like I'm like, yeah, this is an emotional moment. Yeah, I get it, but like, you're dead, and I'm glad the kid's safe. And Shinichi gets his emotions back because he just thinks back to his mother and everything like that. He's like, oh, he got emotions back. And so, of course, Satomi, perfect timing because she followed him over there, or whatever. Shows up, it's like, oh, she's crying again. Oh my Shinichi's crying again. The only thing I have in this entire series is crying again. Character development. What the fuck is that? But there's finally like the government's finally like, hey, we should probably take care of these parasites.
Yep.
Because they find out through various how they find out again about how they find out about the mayor and all of them and everything like that being parasites and shit.
Well, no. So that doesn't happen immediately. Well,
they do. They talk to Shinichi about it, right? They like. Because they hire on the serial killer character.
There's a couple different things that happen that kind of end up telling you that like, so it's only, from what I remember, it was only known that there's somebody in like the government building, but they didn't know exactly who it was, and it was because of their actions within the building that they were like, they're all parasites.
Yeah.
But there's like a whole thing that happens there after they take this kid in, the kid gets to be raised normally, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Then they decide to work with Shinichi in like trying to identify these parasites, and like it's time to just eradicate, because they also hire like
the serial killer.
Well, no, the serial killer, but like the main dude that was leading this whole barrage that was just like, fuck it, just kill them all.
Kill them all. Wipe them out.
I can't remember what the hell his name was, but so they decide to do this whole operation basically, and they use the serial killer to test Shinichi first, because the serial killer can apparently like see it in their eyes.
Well, he has the same thing as Kana does.
So he's got this sense and he can know. So they bring like a group of like 6 people that has Shinichi in it, and he has to look at him through the glass, and oh my god, the part with the woman was so unnecessary, but like Jesus Christ, he just starts like jerking it when they have one girl in the group, and the minute that she walks in, he's like, bro, it's been so long, I just need to, and you're like,
it's been a while.
Why? I mean, I get that we're like trying to make him as creepy and disgusting as possible, but he was already there.
Yeah, we didn't need to.
Because this man is just like full-fledged, like he just kills. He just loves to kill. He is like full-fledged, just does not give a shit. He will kill whoever.
You get it? He's a serial killer.
Yeah, it's real heavy-handed on that.
Yeah, he's a bad guy. Do you know that?
So that's how Shinichi gets like cleared to work with these government officials, because he doesn't sense it or whatever. Yeah. So then they decide this whole operation. So they're going to bring people out in small groups, and they all have to be in a line. And they have a little like X-ray machine thing. And what the hell were they exactly looking for?
I forget.
I don't remember what the indicating factor there was, but they also have the serial killer dude and Shinichi are in this van, and he's like looking through the monitor trying to help them, but he's like, I have to be in person. I can't tell who it is through a monitor. So they end up being successful with like the first couple. They end up finding parasites and they kill them and they use shotguns that way because shotguns spread and they can get the heart immediately. They learn the heart thing. I don't think they ever learned the beheading thing.
No.
So they're going about it line after line, and the parasites that are within the building, which includes the mayor, are starting to kind of realize what this is and what the point of this is. And they're like, well, shit, we got to find some way around this. And so a whole ass huge group of them are like, we forgot something in a meeting room. I'm like...
Oops,
or no, oh no, there's people in a meeting. There were people in a meeting and they were like, well, they don't know. We have to go get them. And I'm like, yeah, all 30 of you have to go get them? Okay. And the mayor, dude, he was smart. I will say he was smart because he was like, all the women and elderly need to go first. And like, so he could buy himself some time. And that was kind of what told them that like something's up here.
Yeah.
And then they started having issues that like as they were taking people out, people are hearing these gunshots that are happening. Oh, the serial killer dude ends up outside the van and just starts like saying like he's one of them, and so they just shoot a random person and yeah, so now everybody's in a panic, which means they're scrambling and they can't scan, and then their one parasite is detected. They go to shoot it, but they end up shooting the X-ray machine, so now they're out of that. People are in groups, so they can't properly scan them. There's all these like weird issues that start overlapping and happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of convoluted shit going on.
Yeah, and then it just turns into full-blown massacre. And they're like, and that's when Homeboy, whatever the hell his name, he's supposed to be like a different branch, and he doesn't give a shit about the protocol that they're doing. He's like, this is an extermination. I don't give a shit about what you're doing. I don't care about saving anybody. He just wants to eliminate these parasites. And so he just tells his team to just open fire, basically.
Yeah.
And they just lose their shit in there.
Yep.
And then the serial killer dude has his like escort man that starts like losing his mind because they are killing innocent people also, and he's like, this is all for the greater good, isn't it? This is what we have to do. This is just for everybody. And he's like losing his shit, and of course the killer's like, yeah, this is my fucking end, bro.
This is my jam.
I'm gonna be able to be a free man.
Oh, my dude's losing his mind. It's about to go down.
Oh my god.
And you're just like, Jesus, what the fuck's going on?
Yeah.
But then they finally, at some point, finally get to the mayor, right?
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they like finally get to him, and he has this whole fucking speech.
A monologue.
Yeah, you're monologuing. You caught me monologuing. Fucking syndrome from fucking Incredibles would be like, dude, shut the fuck up. But he starts going in, and he's like, he talks. He's basically like, it's just the whole thing. It's like, you're not so different. He basically calls humans the infection. But it gets real ironic when he takes the full shotgun spread straight to his body, and they go up to him, and they're like, oh fuck, this dude's a human.
Yeah, he was never a parasite to begin with.
He's
and you're like,
never a parasite. And they're like, what? And this dude, and then Gato shows up, and he's just like, yeah, that dude was fucking weird. Whatever, bro. So, y'all want to fight or what?
Yep.
Y'all, I you know what I love doing? I love fucking fighting. Look at this fucking body, fucking head ass. Like, I'm gonna go in. And so it turns into, it is, and again, some good shit.
At that point, and also the serial killer is now a free man.
Oh, he books it.
Yeah, he takes a gun, he kills his freaking escort dude, and he just takes off. I mean, there you go, it's over.
GG, we're out.
Well, shit, now he's on the loose again.
Yeah, and just like, it's just a hot diggity nightmare.
Yeah.
But then it ultimately comes down to Shinichi versus Gato and everything, and that's basically kind of like the 2 episodes before the finale. It's just all that shit, and of course Miki's having fucking issues and all that kind of jazz, and there's some character development and all that kind of shit and everything. It's a pretty good fight. Like, it's all right.
And then Miki gets introduced. Miki, the big fight.
Yeah, well, no, Miki is who we're introduced, which that happened earlier, because there's the show has a lot of shit that kind of goes on into it, but it's also filled in with all the high school stuff, so you also have to deal with all that kind of shit, and you're just kind of like, yeah, there's a lot of stuff you got to keep track of, and it's just fucking everyone's when when there's certain aspects of the show that you're interested in, and there's certain aspects of the show you can give less of a fuck about, it gets real hard to watch.
Jesus.
It felt a little bit sluggish, but like Mickey's also introduced because that was the fight they had in the forest where his legs weren't working right, and then he has the flailing arms and all that kind of shit.
Yeah, he worked with Tamara and Goto.
Yeah, and so that's how we're first introduced to Miki, and then that last fight.
And him playing the piano in his boxers.
Yeah,
And then being like, Miki.
Miki, was that Mozart? No, Chopin. I'm like, what the fuck?
So
Dude, it's
dumb.
so
dumb.
it's so like you get it. He's the villain. He plays the piano. Like that's a weird trope to bring in, especially for these creatures. Like I feel like for those creatures, it's like why would they give a shit about music?
Right? I'm like, they're just really just trying things.
Yeah, they're just like, I'm just trying to feel it out, and everything. Just giving it a go. But basically, his character it's 5 parts, right? 5 parasites.
Yeah,
all
he's
been there.
5 parasites on one body.
Yeah.
But he's got like a main host.
Yeah.
Miki is like one of the main hosts, but then there's like another one that I don't think was given a name, because there's like Miki and then this main one that can control all 5 of them, where the other ones, if they're present, that they can't control the other 4.
Yeah.
So you get the lovely introduction of him and his now desire to kill Shinichi.
Yeah, because he's like,
And this man is the whole scene of like him hopping in the truck, because Shinichi can only run and like wind himself for so long.
Yeah.
So then he like hops in one dude's truck to try and like put some distance, and then Miki ends up in the back of another person's truck. He's like, son of a bitch.
Son of a bitch.
Like,
Son of a bitch. Stop switching around and all that kind of shit and everything. God damn it.
yeah. And now Shinichi, this is when he like basically tells his dad that he's gonna be away for a while, and he's got to stay in the middle of fucking nowhere, in this tiny little village. He ends up
Vibing or whatever.
Yeah, he ends up being like temporarily adopted by this random old lady that's all alone.
All by myself.
Yeah, and they try. So that's like, because Miki loses his. Well, so this was no. Oh yeah, so they have the fight, and Migi has this whole idea that, okay, I need to separate from you for a little while so we can do this plan, because he won't be able to sense Shinichi, he'll only be able to sense Migi.
Yeah.
So Migi is going to basically be a decoy. Shinichi's going to swoop in and do this whole plan that they had, which was with fire, right?
I think so, yeah.
And it fails. And so Migi can't be separated for a really long time. He's going to end up dying. And Migi tells Shinichi to run, which he does. And so now he doesn't have a right arm. It's like from the elbow down is gone.
Yeah.
Then that's when he ends up with the old lady. And she takes him in because like his head was bleeding. But she was like, I could tell. Yeah, he was like, I could tell you lost your arm a while ago, because obviously it's just a stub.
Yeah,
it's not bleeding or anything.
Noob.
Yeah, so now he's like safe because Miki can't sense him at all.
Yeah.
He has no fucking idea where he is. So, and this old lady's like super alone, so she ends up like relying on Shinichi. They lie to the little village and say that that's her nephew, because they're very weary of foreigners, because they did learn about the parasite issue.
Oh, yeah.
So he's helping her out and all, just normal bullshit and normal character development bullshit moments happen. Yeah.
I feel the shit happens, and man, just stuff, things go on, all that kind of stuff.
But yeah, so he ends up attacking people that are a part of that village. And so then the village comes to the old lady's house and they're like, that person, we know it's not your nephew. There's something going on. La, 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 la.
Pitchforks and torches.
Yeah.
All that shit.
And so Shinichi decides that he's going to leave. Wasn't there something that happened too was it the dream sequence that happens with, he has these dream sequences with Migi, a different type of Migi. But it's like what gives him the idea that Migi is still alive.
Yeah, it still has a connection or something
Yeah,
like that.
like there's something going on. Because, like, Migi is actually a bunch, like, there's a bunch of tiny pieces that Migi couldn't control or couldn't find in Shinichi's body. They're still there.
Yeah.
And that's like, because doesn't an eyeball just appear at one point on him somewhere?
yeah.
And he's like, he's still alive.
He's still here.
So, yeah, he decides to make the decision that, okay, now he's going to go and try and find him, which most likely means that Miki is going to be around too.
Yeah.
Takes that fucking rusty cleaver from the old lady as a weapon.
Yeah. A giant rusty anchor.
Yeah. And then goes and finds him, like, sleeping, trying to regenerate in the woods.
Just vibing.
Yeah, just vibing. He's fucking creepy looking. He's like a giant spider looking creature. Terrifying.
Yeah, man.
And then Shinichi attempts to, like, kill him. It was a very fatal, flawed attempt.
It's a real loose plan.
Yeah, real bad. And, wow. How was it that he figured out that Miki was inside of Miki? Because was it just during that whole sequence after Miki woke up and was, like, freaking out? Because then I think his Miki was, like, not having control of certain parts of him. And that was the, like, connection of, oh no, because he even says it. Miki says, like, Migi, will you chill the fuck out? Or, like, he's, like, trying to talk internally to Migi because Migi is fighting against him.
Yeah.
So he's supposed to be, like, the sixth parasite inside of him, but he's not. He's refusing to accept it.
Yeah.
So he ends up damaging Miki because of that and does end up popping out, I guess, or flies out. Yeah. And ends up back with Shinichi.
And they're back together again.
Yeah. And this whole fight sequence happens, and the way that he wins is because there had been a company dumping trash out in this beautiful wilderness that all these villagers were pissed off about.
Symbolism.
Yeah. Yeah. This all happens. This is basically where everything just goes downhill for me, because the this overarching, like, humans are the real disease of Earth starts to happen.
Yep. It's real.
I was like, I was just here for the horror, man. I did not need a philosophical.
Yeah, it gets real. Oh God, what the fuck?
Pretentious.
No. I mean, no. It is like that. It's not as entertaining though. It's like I forget the author's name, but you know about I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
Oh yeah.
It just gets real, like, nihilistic, like, man, we're the problem, man.
Yeah.
You're the scum, and, like, I'm the supercomputer, and you've done terrible things, and humanity's fucked up. But, like, there's all that shit and everything like that, and you're just like, oh, listen, man, I just want to watch a fucking horror fight scene and everything like that.
But yeah, so he finds this, like, tiny little weak point that Miki has, because he saw him bleed in the past when he got shot. Yeah. And he basically takes this dirty piece of trash, I don't even know what the hell it was supposed to be, and stabs it into him. Yeah. And then because of the bacteria in the trash was what, like, it stopped him from being able to heal himself or, like, regenerate anything. So it's like it's a little such a mess. I was like, this is how he dies. This is
symbolism. Well, it's like it's the same ending as fucking like War of the. I'm just comparing this to other, like, horror sci-fi things because it's obviously probably what this person, like, whoever created this, like, was based off of whatever. It's like War of the Worlds, and fucking the reason why they're trying to terraform Earth into, like, more like Mars is because they're trying to change the oxygen and the bacteria and everything like that, because if they don't do that, they can't habitate on there. Yeah. So obviously when the parasites obviously haven't probably built up the immune systems like humans did. So once that all gets introduced and everything like that to their bodies, they're just like, what the fuck? Yeah. Get out of here. And they're like, they just instantly die to it. So it's an interesting concept, but clearly it's...
Well, and then you have the part, so now Miki has a 50-50 chance that he could either survive and regenerate from this issue, or he could die. And Shinichi can choose. He could just make it quick and kill him with the cleaver that he took from the old woman. And he has this whole moment of, who am I to decide what lives and dies in this world?
Motherfucker, these parasites been eating people, bruh. Like, here's the thing, man. I get it. Like, I get it. You're trying to make this whole allegory that parasites are like, humans are no better than parasites, and parasites are no better than humans, and eating, and da 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 da. Moral question, moral question, moral question. Fuck all of that.
It was, yeah.
It gets real tiring. It gets real tiring. I'm just like, no, it's a fucking, this person, even if you say it's a person, has done inhumane, horrible things.
Yeah.
And we have those things are built into us because it's one, for survival, and two, doesn't make us fucking crazy. So, like, fuck them. It's done. GG. And there's so many of those points in the show where it's just like, bro, come on. And it's been the issue I had with Migi initially for a good chunk of that show. It's just like, this thing has got some problems, and I don't know if I'm really empathizing relate with it. And of course, towards the end of the show, it's very much like Migi. I'm just like, Migi's a nightmare.
Yeah.
And I'm like, once that all kind of goes down, I'm just like, it's just the author just like
And
fucking.
Miki doesn't survive.
Oh yeah,
He doesn't. His 50-50 chance ran out.
He dies. The creators of this jerk themselves off for how deep and intelligent they are. They shoot their load, and they're just like, just kill him. That's fine.
And then he leaves the cleaver at the old lady's house. She comes out and she's like, "Did you do it, boy?
You do it. You do the deed."
But then you get the last episode. Episode 24, which is a fucking nightmare for no good reason.
It's so filler.
I mean, it literally was like, hey, we should probably tie up these loose strings because probably nobody's going to actually read the manga. So, like, let's just tie it all up real quick.
So, like, the first... Well, no, okay, here's the last episode of the season. The last episode of the season is trying to give a proper, like... Because Migi, one, apparently there's no parasite activity anymore.
Yeah, they just go under the radar because I guess, I don't know, maybe this whole incident shook them that much.
Yeah,
like,
or they had been under the radar beforehand, and it was just this one incident that happened that kind of caused the whole thing. But either way, no, don't worry about it anymore.
It went quiet.
It's stupid. So it goes quiet. Migi
goes dormant.
Well, yeah, he basically says like, I might be asleep forever.
Yeah, he's
and
like, I have to sleep.
I have to sleep. And like, Migi, no. And you're supposed to be all sad. And,
and Sonichi's all upset about it. And he's like, well, what am I gonna do?
And he talks to oh god, what the hell's his name? Him and Joe.
Uda.
He talks to Uda for a bit, which Uda and Joe still exist because they're still doing their thing because they're obviously they're living their best lives, not dealing with all that shit.
Yeah.
You can keep that away from my boys because they're just having a good time and just dealing with fucking Uda's emotional traumas and everything because he needs that in his life, right? He cries a lot, but you know what? He's a good dude. Give him a girl. Next season, just Uda and Joe. Just that's all I want to see. But
we totally forgot that right before the fight happens, or like Shinichi's making this decision that because he knows that Miki wants to kill him, and he's like, I might be dead. We totally forgot that him and Satomi have sex. Because he makes this decision of like, I want to live, and I have to have something to live for, so they have sex. She just her parents happen to not be home. So
I forget.
Yeah, that happens. You get that scene. You get that.
Who gives a fuck?
Yeah, I was like, because I totally forgot, because I mentioned that he told his dad that he was going to be gone for a while, but I forgot that was a part of that too.
Dude, she must have just the choice sex of his life.
I knew you were going to say that. The minute I watched that part of the scene, I was like, I know exactly what comment Nick is going to make.
Yeah, she must have had the... I have things I can say, but I'm not going to say them.
I mean, when it's your only sex in life, it is the best sex. Well, let's be honest, that was his only one. It was the best.
When pussy gives you the will to live.
Yep, that was...
I'm literally sitting there, I'm just like...
the theme. That was the theme of this whole fight. I need the will to live. Let me go hit it real quick and see if it's worth it.
Dude, imagine.
Like if she had known. If she had known, I'd be like, homie, is this why we had sex? Is this why? I'm feeling real used right now.
This is gonna be a
But
lot.
she seems kind of stupid, so maybe she wouldn't even ask that question. I don't know. She's oblivious as
My
hell.
ears are sweaty. Hold on.
What a problem. What a problem to have. I don't think I've been in that position, friend.
It's the dumbest shit. Imagine a world where, like, dude, imagine if it wasn't that good. Imagine if he went in that moment and she was just like,
She's like, shit, man. Maybe I should die.
maybe I just need to be a fucking corpse. Maybe it's just how it goes. Maybe it's not worth it. Imagine a world. Imagine you're with a guy who's like, that's gonna be a lot of trauma. That's couples therapy right there. That's couples therapy right there.
So back to, last episode. Now they're together.
Oh yeah, now they're together.
She's in college and everything.
Because that shit be hitting different. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course he fucked up his education with all of this shit, so he's like they have to wait for him to be able to go to college.
She's helping him with his exams and all that stuff. But so intercut with like them doing the whole Satomi Sanichi who gives a fuck shit.
We're in a relationship, everything is good.
My ship happened. Oh my god.
Yeah. Oh my god.
He's going on these whole diatribes about everything, the universe, people, who we are, and I'm just like, come on. The problem is that he's basically talking to the audience like it's like you're fucking children.
Yeah, it's
and you're
awful.
And you're just like,
This ain't National Geographic. Get out of here.
yeah, no.
I don't care about what humans are doing to the earth. Well, I do, but
Wait,
I don't
but
care
we're
in this.
adults.
I don't
We're
care in this
adults.
scene.
So here's the thing about the show. I'm like, is this show aimed towards like young adults? It just happens to be really fucking violent.
Yeah, I'm like,
Hold
this
on,
is
before
a lot.
I continue this, we have a friend who suggested this show to me, and he really likes the show, and I do apologize.
Oh, he's gonna be upset.
I'm sorry.
He's gonna come into this
listen,
like, oh my
okay.
god, what the fuck?
I was like, oh shit, bros, fuck you too. No, like, I understand. Again, there's parts of the show that I did like, and I think the
as a whole, I don't mind it.
no, it's a fine show. There was
parts.
a lot of fat that either needed to be trimmed off, or there was just certain aspects of the show that needed a little more time to be focused on, at least in my view of how the story is told. Yeah. And the last episode does not need to happen.
No, it
the
really
last
doesn't.
episode does not need to be there. The last episode basically is...
Or it could have just been like, if you really wanted to do the like, oh, you know that people are going to want to see the ship, you could have just left it at that.
But you could, and it also could have just, you didn't need to implant it into your audience's head of this is what this show's about. I'm
Yep.
like, no shit.
Yep.
No
The
fucking shit.
whole show became just like, we are the real parasites.
Like,
I'm
listen,
pretty sure
man.
that's said. I'm pretty sure the human
No,
race is the
it's-
real parasite or
well,
something.
no, it's when the mayor says humans are the infection.
Well, yes, but no, like it said like again in some way. In
The
that
only
last episode,
time,
whatever.
you know what? The only time that that shit works in any semblance of media of like we are the people, like or whatever, is The Walking Dead. Not in the
I was just about to say zombies.
yeah, no, not the TV series, because the TV series fucks that up. But in the comic books, the whole angle is that the reason why the show is called The Walking Dead is because one of the characters, the example is made is like, no, we're not worried about the dead. We're worried about ourselves. Yeah. We're the Walking Dead. It's inevitable. Yeah. Like we're maybe not gonna survive this because one, we can't cooperate as humans, and two, the fucking undead hordes are fucking everywhere. Shit's fucked, and that's when
and
it's
the virus is already in you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You already have that shit because once you die, you just become a zombie.
Yeah,
like,
so what's the point of fighting each other?
Right. No. It's that. In that context, it's It's a
it's
really
great.
good, compelling way and of making it out to. It's really compelling, interesting angle of to show the shittiness of humanity, but also trying to be better from that.
Yeah, not they're dumping trash into the woods.
Yeah, I mean, again,
Like, what?
That shit's fucked up too. But you can tell it in a less pretentious,
Yeah.
less talking down to your audience member. Like, this is what this means, and you're like,
Not fucking stupid. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm not a child.
Got it.
But that whole last episode, and then of course they had to
Serial killer.
they bring it back to the serial killer being back, and there's a whole thing, and it's basically this whole part is basically, hey, Migi's not dead. He's still in Shinichi. He exists because Satomi almost gets thrown off by the serial killer off a roof after he's killed people.
Yeah, he just slaughters 2 people.
So slaughter 2 people on the roof. Because Shinichi, every time he tries to save somebody, they just end up fucking dead multiple times. I didn't know that was a callback to being how shitty Shinichi is at saving people.
Jesus.
He reaches out, and then there's this whole like 5-minute eternal monologue with, by the way, Migi walking is horrifying. It's hilariously horrifying.
So weird.
I'm like, he starts walking around, he's like interacting. He looks like a fucking cartoon. Like, he looks like, obviously he's a cartoon character. He's an anime.
Puddle of Play-Doh.
And you're just like, what the? It goes. We're done with the horror at that point. The horror is no longer existent. It is.
And that's when the whole part comes of like, what do I look like to you? And so he shows Migi what he looks like to him, and Migi's like, well, that's weird. Like, well, this is what you look like to me. And he's like, what? And then all of a sudden it's this whole thing of like, your perception of people and like how you view them is different it's different for everyone. You won't see the 2 same people the same way. It's like, what is going on?
Get our point. Get our point across.
So much like,
tell the audience, because they're too stupid. Tell them what we were trying to say. Tell them. They don't understand subtlety. Let them know.
It was brutal. Like that whole, and then all of a sudden, right at the end, Migi goes, well, I'm real tired of holding her, so it's your turn. And then that's when he realizes that he did actually catch her.
Yeah, and he's like, I saved her. Oh, it's Mickey. I thank you. And then the cops show up. There's 3 bodies on the ground, plus them. There's the 2 bodies they found, and then they find the serial killer.
Shinichi like punched him in the face. That was all he did, wasn't it?
I think
just
so.
Punched him in the face.
Yeah, and the cops show up, and there's 2 dead people, and then they're like, there's 5 there's 2 people. There's 3 more bodies over there, and him and fucking. Shinichi and Satomi are like, it's laying on like on the ground or whatever.
His chest.
She's on his chest, and she's just like, oh, they're talking about us.
They think it's us.
They think we're dead. There's been a double murder.
It's the most awkward
going on, and you're having a guffaw about it.
Oh, what the hell?
What?
The last episode. I was doing my makeup when I watched it, and I was just like, I'm gonna finish my eyeliner. All right.
Dude, it just, like, the show was already, like, having a few missteps here and there, but they had some good crescendos, they had some good flips, and then you fucking tried to do the split on the bar, and your legs just went like that, and you just right into your genitals, right square into your sand testicles, or fucking whatever part you got, just annihilated, because that part is hilariously just unbelievable how like weird it got.
Totally
do yourselves a favor if you're gonna watch the show. Don't watch the last episode if you don't want to be partially insulted. Or listen, or watch it because it's funny as fuck. But if you're trying to take the show at least some semblance of seriousness, at least for us, we were like, no, we're fresh out on this shit. Yeah. And granted, maybe some people are like, maybe we're being a little too mean on like trying to get the point across, and maybe they feel like maybe the author felt like it might have gone over some people's heads about like the story and everything. And, like,
honestly, if all of that is in the manga, it makes sense because it was from 88 to 95.
Oh yeah,
that totally makes sense.
Yeah. No, in
2014, it was unnecessary.
Yeah, we know. We know. We're in a post 9/11 era, right? We know all this shit.
We are aware.
We are fully aware of all the shit that's fucked. Welcome to being a millennial. Hot diggity damn, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like you said, and that's when I was doing a little bit of the research about the show and everything like that. There are certain things I was like, oh, that makes sense. Especially when like people were talking about how like somewhat influential the manga was for all the stuff it was doing in like 88 to 95.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I'm sure like reading some of the like looking at some of the panels, how it's drawn and everything. I'm like, oh yeah, during that time period, this was probably like insane.
Yeah,
this was very good. I'm sure it was eye opening at the time, and I at some point would probably want to read the manga, maybe appreciate it more and everything like that, and get a better understanding of everything. But like, I'm gonna use Lord of the Rings as an example, because the greatest thing about the Lord of the Rings trilogy when they came out as movies was that they knew they needed to trim out a lot of fat. Mm-hmm. They knew they needed to, because J.R.R. Tolkien just much like Homeboy in this, who's all about his environment and all that kind of stuff and everything, and trying to preaches truth. Like, good on him. Tolkien loved his universe. Tolkien talked about how the grass would sing and how the grass would have songs, and Tom Bombadil. All you need to know about is Tom Bombadil. He literally just shows up for a chapter and then leaves, and then nothing else happens. Like, there's so many things in the Lord of the Rings books that are mostly just the author being like, look at this world I built, isn't it cool? And they're like, that's great, but what about the story? And the best thing that trilogy did was like, we can cut this out. We can cut this out. We can cut out this part. This is fine. It makes the story cohesive, tight, and it makes the film 3 hours, but you're going to enjoy those 3 hours.
Yeah.
When you're translating written to screen, you should understand that you need to trim some stuff off just because of how much time you're going to have and how much you need to retain an audience during like an animated or visual media and everything like that. And I think that the show suffers a little bit on the pacing and everything like that. Again, there's things I liked about the show in terms of like Tamara as her arc in parts. There's still some hypocrisy here and there, but like I liked how the fight scenes went and everything like that. Shinichi as a character, while at certain points I felt he was a little inconsistent, I still enjoyed him as a main protagonist in terms of him dealing with Migi and everything. Migi in the end, I get as a character, as much as I had a little bit of trouble empathizing with him, I still appreciated a little bit of the banter between the two. I like Uda and Joe. I thought they were cool, funny side characters. I actually enjoyed the private investigators arc a little bit because you genuinely feel bad for that fucking dude.
Yeah,
It's just the man's family just got destroyed, and it's the last thing he does and everything like that. There are points in the show where they do a really good job of dealing with the humanity of the whole situation and who has the right to do this and that and everything like that. It's just that there's those certain parts where it hammers it just too hard, and it really is just like, do you get it? Don't you get it? Don't you understand? Don't you see? Look at it! Look at it! Look at it! I want all of you to look at it.
God, it's
Don't mind me, sir. I'm just my horrible ugliness does not distract you from the film. Not at all, boy. That's where we're at. That's how this show ended. If I guess if I'm going to say anything, like if you have a chance to maybe read the manga, like give that a shot. I think I might sit down and actually make myself go through it and see if I have any off feelings for that. If there's maybe I have a better appreciation for it and everything like that, and especially if it's up from that time period, I think I'll understand like those ideas for the time. Are going to fit more of that concept, especially like it's in the same time period as like Akira. Like Akira's out in that same time, and comparatively from the anime series to like Akira, like as a film, like Akira does a really good job of pacing itself. Akira does a really good job of going from point A to point B to point C and also making its point across. Which is, hey, don't bomb people anymore.
Right.
Hey, that's not fucking cool.
Like, Jesus.
Hey, also no psychic kids. Never psychic kids because one, that's fucked up, and two, they get creepy old people syndrome.
Dear God.
Ugh. I watched that film in it was like a little bit towards like the middle or again the pandemic or whatever. They when theaters were just like, please come to us. They did a 4K redo of Akira. Oh my God, it was insane. That film is so pretty in 4K. It was so nice, especially on the big screen and everything like that. There was barely anyone in the theater. We were all masked up and everything. It was just kind of like, it was that weird point where we were just kind of like, I think everyone was already kind of like vaccinated or whatever, and we're just kind of like, is this cool yet? Are we cool yet? I don't know if it's gonna be cool anymore, but it was still a time and a half. It was very good. But do you have any more parting words before we we make our friend very, very sad after he sees this? Again,
not really. It's pretty much. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much against this show. It was.
It's a if I had to give this show like a out of 5, I think like a like it's a solid like 3,
Yeah.
maybe like a 2.5 to a 3.
I'd give it a 3.
I give it
a 3.
yeah, because again, like there's certain there's enjoyable aspects of the show, intentional and a little bit not intentional, but that the tail end, like parts of the tail end, I actually like parts of the end I actually enjoyed, especially when you started dealing with more of the parasites and their like dichotomy and everything.
Yeah.
But then that and this high school stuff and all that stuff. So yeah, I'm sure there'll be people that will, if anybody comments on this, comment, like, and subscribe. Algorithm. I said the thing. So you should do the thing. I said the thing. Do the thing.
If anybody made it an hour and a half in,
Are we already? I assume
it's almost an hour 40.
Woo!
It's a long episode.
It's a very long episode. Yeah, there's a lot to cover. It was 24 episodes, so but there's a lot to. I will say this: there was a lot to talk about.
Yeah, no, this one had a lot to talk about.
Yeah, there's a lot to talk about, and there was a good chunk of it that we didn't cover because God, we didn't care. And most of it was the high school stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, most of it could be summarized in the small bits that I gave because that was like the entirety of it. There was not a lot of complex.
No.
Because it was just her coming in and out, but she had like no character. So.
No, it was real. Yeah, it was real. Blech.
Yeah.
Blech.
Like even the sex part, it just went from like, do you want to come over? There's nobody home. They're doing it.
They're
All
doing
right,
it.
And now he's going off to fight, and that was it. That was the whole thing.
The symbolism of him inside is when they held hands and their hands got really tight.
Oh yeah.
That was the sign.
Yep, that was it. That was the whole thing. So.
Yeah. No,
But.
that was a lot. But I think on that spooky October metal waifu, ooh, high school symbolism, forced social issues. That's what you wanted to be scared of, huh? I mean, 2021, it's pretty scary. Next episode is our metal episode for the month. We're going to talk about
Ginger.
Ginger. We're going to talk about Ginger's Wallflower just came out.
Yeah.
So we're going to get on to that. Get situated, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Deuces in the deuces.